The German Shepherd, WOULDNT, stopped barking at her closet. What the little girl found was chilling. Picture a quiet suburban street in the heart of fall, leaves rustling in the crisp breeze as families settle into their cozy homes for the evening. Suddenly, a piercing bark echoes through the twilight again and again, an urgent cry that refuses to relent. A young girl named Lily clutches her beloved German Shepherd's collar, trembling as he fixates on her bedroom closet. No one understands why the dog is so distressed, but Lily senses that something is terribly wrong. She musters the courage to pull the closet door open, never imagining that her life is about to change forever, in the most chilling way possible. Lily Hampton was 8 years old, and up until a few weeks ago, she believed all the scary things in her world were confined to ghost stories or the far corners of her imagination. Halloween had just passed in the small tree-lined town of Lacey Springs. Jack-o'-lanterns on porches still glowed at twilight, and many houses displayed leftover decorations, fake cobwebs blowing in the wind, skeletons perched in yards. The colorful leaves crunched beneath boots in a setting so idyllic it could have been the cover of a nostalgic postcard. Her parents, Sarah and Mark Hampton, had recently purchased a modest craftsman-style home at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac called Maplewood Lane. It was the kind of house with charming details, a wide porch, neatly trimmed hedges, and a creaky old oak tree in the front yard that gave just the right hint of classic Americana. Yet beneath that pleasant veneer, Lily's new bedroom held an unsettling secret. The family German Shepherd, Ranger, was known in their neighborhood for his unwavering loyalty and calm demeanor. From his earliest days, Ranger had been trained to detect trouble. Mark worked as a police officer for the local Lacey Springs Police Department, and though Ranger wasn't an official K-9 unit, Mark had spent endless hours training him to be a protector. Ranger was no stranger to tense situations, but in all of Lily's 8 years, she'd never seen him this upset. Since the first day they moved into the new house, Ranger had fixated on the sliding closet door in Lily's bedroom. He would glare at it, his ears perked, growling low and deep as if someone or something was lurking inside. At first, Sarah and Mark brushed it off as typical dog behavior. Maybe Ranger just needed time to adjust to the new space. But when Lily found Ranger standing in front of the closet in the dead of night, barking with a desperation that sent her heart thumping, the family grew more concerned. The dog would not let up. Every day, morning and evening, Ranger's eyes never strayed far from that closet. Initially, Lily was too frightened to approach it. She'd stare at the closet door from her bed, the silent hush of midnight pressing in on her ears while Ranger growled. Sometimes she'd whimper, her little hands gripping her blankets as she pretended not to notice the dog's alarming posture. But she knew something was wrong. She wasn't sure if it was a ghost, a burglar, or a figment of her own dreams, but the dog's behavior was too consistent, too intense to be an accident. Then, one evening, Lily decided she would face the unknown. With trembling hands, she slid the closet door open. The overhead light in her room illuminated rows of dresses, shirts, and her pink winter coat. Nothing unusual, just the usual clutter a child's closet accumulates. Ranger pressed his wet nose against the clothes, sniffing. His body was tense, tail stiff. Despite Lily's thorough search, there was nothing visibly alarming, no rats, no strange items. She pushed aside her shoes, smoothed the thick burgundy carpet with her tiny fingers, and peered into the dusty corners. Nothing. Yet the very next night, Ranger went back to barking, more agitated than ever before. Sarah and Mark's worry only grew deeper. They tried numerous solutions, letting Ranger sleep outside Lily's door, keeping the closet door ajar at all times, or even placing scented dog treats near the closet so he'd calm down. None of it made any difference. Every time Lily so much as looked at that closet, she felt a chill prickle over her arms. She told herself it was just anxiety, that she was feeding off the dog's energy and spooking herself. But no matter how many times she tried to rationalize it, she couldn't shake the feeling that the closet harbored something vile. Even Mark, who prided himself on his logical, investigative mind, honed by years on the police force, had to admit there was something bizarre about the situation. He carefully inspected the closet after removing everything inside, pressing on the walls and the floor, searching for hidden compartments or structural damage. He discovered an old heating vent behind a panel, but it led nowhere significant, just the typical duct that meandered through the walls to the rest of the house. He tapped each wall, listening for any hollow spots or echoes of a secret space. Nothing. When Mark told his buddy, Officer Daniel Price, about the strange occurrences, Daniel dismissed it as old house quirks. But Mark's gut told him there was more to the story. The Hamptons had purchased the home from an older couple who downsized and moved to Florida. The real estate agent, a warm and chatty woman named Rebecca Stone, had said nothing about any structural issues. The house had passed every inspection. There were no mentions of mold or pests or anything out of the ordinary. Still, as Sarah watched Lily grow increasingly uneasy, she urged Mark to run a check on the property's history. Maybe someone had died there, or something illegal had taken place decades ago. Mark tried the official route, running queries through the county records. And that's when a curious piece of info surfaced. There had been a complaint filed against a previous occupant for disturbing noises, but the complaint was more than 40 years old. Police records indicated that neighbors had reported loud, incessant barking from the house, though the occupant at the time didn't have a registered pet. The complaint was eventually dismissed because officers could find no evidence of wrongdoing. But the record lingered, a faint clue that hinted at a deeper mystery. Days turned into weeks, and Lily's fear escalated. She began having nightmares about her closet, an endless darkness stretching from within, swallowing her whole, or ghostly hands reaching out to clutch her ankles. She barely slept, and her grades started slipping. Her teacher at Lacey Springs Elementary, Miss Caldwell, called Sarah to voice concern about Lily's exhaustion in class. Something had to be done. One dreary afternoon, Sarah drove Lily to the local veterinarian, Dr. June Collins, thinking there might be a medical reason for Ranger's incessant barking. Dr. Collins found Ranger in perfect health. No infection, no neurological issues. Physically, the dog was prime and robust. After hearing about the closet, Dr. Collins suggested that maybe the dog smelled a rodent infestation or was reacting to a subtle change in the environment. But the family had checked for pests. A second exterminator visit confirmed there were none. It became so disruptive that on one particularly tense night, Mark used his police flashlight to do a final, thorough inspection. He used a mirror to look in tight corners, removing the floor vent to peer inside. Lily hovered by the bedroom door, hugging Ranger's back. Even though Lily was glad her father was investigating, a part of her dreaded what might be found. She'd heard enough local folklore stories about hidden compartments and old houses with sinister secrets. But once more, Mark found absolutely nothing unusual. After a long sigh, he put his tools away and gently patted Lily's shoulder. "See, sweetheart, there's nothing in there," he said, though his tone was forced. Lily nodded, though tears shone in her eyes. Ranger let out a single, low growl aimed at the closet, then trotted out of the room, unsettled as ever. The next day, Lily decided to confront her fear head-on. She waited until her parents were out of earshot. Sarah was working in the garden, and Mark was in the garage cleaning his police cruiser. Summoning all her courage, Lily entered her room, closed the door behind her, and approached the closet with measured steps. Ranger was at her side, tongue hanging out in nervous panting, his attention riveted on the closet. Lily pushed the closet door open, letting the sunlight spill onto her clothes. She flipped on the overhead light, scanning the inside as if seeing it for the first time. She moved aside dresses and shirts, then carefully lifted a few shoeboxes from the closet floor. Her heart hammered. She stared at the back corner where the carpet was slightly frayed, some thick staple or tack protruding from the wood. Ranger inched closer, pressing his nose into the corner. Suddenly, Lily noticed the corner of a small piece of paper sticking out from beneath the rug. Hands shaking, she tugged at the paper until it came free. It was a tattered, yellowed note with uneven edges as though ripped from a notebook. The handwriting was faint, barely legible. In big, childish letters, it read, "Help me. Dad locked me in here again." The message hit Lily like a cold shock. She read it twice, then looked at the date scrawled beneath, October 12, 1979. At the bottom was a name, Bethany. The note ended abruptly, as if the writer had been forced to stop. Lily's breath hitched. She felt tears burning her eyes, though she wasn't entirely sure why. She looked at Ranger. The dog let out a small whine, tail stiff. Lily whispered, "Who are you, Bethany?" Her imagination spiraled. Had a little girl been locked in her closet by a cruel father? Was that the cause of the disturbing aura? Could that be why Ranger barked at the closet? Did he sense some lingering presence? Heart pounding, Lily clutched the note to her chest. She knew she had to tell her parents, but a part of her worried they'd ignore it, or worse, get rid of it and dismiss it as ancient scribblings. Lily decided to hide it in a shoebox under her bed. She wouldn't keep it hidden for long, but she needed time to process what it meant. She spent the rest of the night tossing and turning, imagining a terrified girl named Bethany huddled in that very closet decades ago, scribbling a desperate plea for help. For the next few days, Lily scoured the house for more clues, especially the corners of her closet's carpeting. Every time she found herself alone, she'd sneak upstairs with Ranger and do a thorough search. She was determined to find a diary entry, or maybe a photograph. She read the note over and over, memorizing each letter, attempting to glean any additional meaning from the faint pencil marks. She conjured images of a father towering over a little girl with anger blazing in his eyes. She pictured the father shutting the closet door, locking it from the outside as Bethany cried in the darkness. And the more Lily thought about it, the more certain she became that Bethany's spirit lingered here, fueling Ranger's agitation. She told herself she had to do something to right this old wrong. If Bethany had never been rescued, maybe her spirit was calling out for help. Finally, she couldn't bear it anymore. She showed the note to her parents one evening after dinner. Sarah's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth. Mark read it twice, frowning intently. He squinted at the date. 1979, he muttered, running a calloused thumb over the faded pencil lines. "This is from over 40 years ago," Sarah asked gently. "Where did you find it?" "In the corner under the carpet," Lily explained. "It looked like it had been stashed there." Mark stood up and grabbed his phone. "I'll call Officer Price. We can dig into some records. If a child was abused here, there'd be some documentation." They sat around the kitchen table, the overhead light reflecting their concerned faces. Ranger paced in circles, occasionally stopping to stare at Lily as if encouraging her. Mark placed a reassuring hand on Lily's shoulder. "We'll figure this out, I promise." But Lily could see the glimmer of unease in his eyes. Even for a seasoned police officer, the note was haunting, and the fact that it emerged now, in Lily's closet, only deepened the sense that something sinister lurked in that space. Mark took the note to the station the next morning. While Lily was at school, Sarah waited at home anxiously, restless. When Lily returned that afternoon, she found her mother in the living room, phone in hand. Sarah motioned for her to come closer. "It's your dad." Mark's voice crackled over the line. "I've got something," he said. Lily and Sarah listened intently as Mark relayed the findings. His tone was somber. In the late 1970s, a family named the Winters had lived in that very house. Records indicated the father, Jonathan Winters, had faced multiple allegations of child abuse allegations that were difficult to prove back in those days. Police reports were inconclusive, and no charges were ever formally filed. However, the mother, Patricia Winters, disappeared under mysterious circumstances around 1980. There was no record of a child named Bethany Winters, but neighbors' statements vaguely referenced a daughter who was never seen in public. The father always claimed she was homeschooled and had a delicate condition, which explained her rare appearances outside the house. The entire matter was left unsolved. Jonathan Winters eventually sold the property and vanished. Lily's blood ran cold. The family had purchased a house that once belonged to a known abuser. The date on Bethany's note matched the timeline. Lily visualized the father once again, towering over that frightened girl. She sensed the flicker of Bethany's silent screams reverberating through time. As the days wore on, Ranger's behavior grew more frantic. His barking would peak late at night, around 3 in the morning every single night. Lily started sleeping in her parents' room, too terrified to stay alone. Even Sarah, who tried to maintain a brave face, would jump at every strange creak in the floorboards. The closet seemed to emanate a distinct chill, as if it were perpetually caught in a draft. One night, Lily woke from a nightmare, heart thumping in her chest. She dreamed of a soft voice whispering her name from inside the closet. She slid out of bed, tiptoed down the hall to her room, and peered inside. The closet door was slightly ajar, though she was certain she'd left it shut tight before bedtime. Ranger padded up beside her, tail still. Lily flicked on the light. Her closet was empty, her clothes hanging placidly, as if nothing out of place had occurred. But Lily noticed a faint scratch on the inside of the door near the top. It was about the size of a child's handwriting, and it read, B, just the letter B, etched into the old wood. She could have sworn it wasn't there before. She retreated, trembling. She wanted to run to her parents, but something held her in place. She sensed a mix of fear and sadness, an undercurrent that tugged at her compassion. Instead of screaming, Lily simply closed the door and whispered, "Bethany, I'm sorry." In that moment, Ranger let out a soft whimper, pushing his head against Lily's hip. The house was silent, but Lily felt as if someone were breathing behind the closet door. She backed away and slipped out of the room, heart pounding. By now, Mark had fully immersed himself in the case, calling in favors from colleagues and searching through dusty archives of old police reports. Lily overheard him in heated phone calls with Officer Price, repeatedly referencing Bethany Winters and child endangerment cases from the 70s. He even rummaged through old boxes stored in the police station's basement. One day after school, Lily found Mark in the living room with documents spread all over the coffee table. She could see black and white photographs, old microfilm scans, cryptic references to an investigation of Jonathan Winters. Some pages were labeled with the official stamp of the state of Washington. Others referenced mental health evaluations. There was even a short newspaper clipping about the rumored disappearance of a local woman named Patricia Winters, Jonathan's wife. The headline read, "Local mother vanishes. Husband claims she ran away." Lily settled onto the couch, rummaging through the papers until she found a grainy photograph of a girl with pigtails, looking to be about 9 or 10 years old. The photo was labeled with a date from 1979. "That might be Bethany," Mark said quietly, leaning over the table. In the photo, the girl stared at the camera with hollow, fearful eyes. Her arms bore bruises in various stages of healing. She stood on the front porch of the house that Lily now called home. The oak tree in the background was unmistakable. Lily felt tears prick her eyes. She couldn't imagine the terror that child must have experienced. "Dad locked me in here again." Lily read the note's words in her mind, hearing Bethany's voice like a faint echo. Sarah entered, setting a mug of tea on the coffee table. "Mark, any clue what happened to her?" Mark sighed heavily. "Nothing conclusive. Patricia's disappearance overshadowed everything. Some neighbors suspected Jonathan had killed her, but no body was ever found. As for Bethany, she just vanished from the records too. No official missing persons report. No adoption or transfer of guardianship. It's like she disappeared alongside her mother." Sarah shivered. "So we have a father with a history of abuse, a missing wife, and a child who left behind a pleading note in the closet. And our German shepherd won't stop barking at that exact spot." The weight of the mystery hovered in the air, thick enough to choke on. Lily clenched her fists. "We have to find out what happened to Bethany," she said. "Maybe if we do, Ranger will calm down. And maybe Bethany can finally rest." That night, Lily had another dream. She found herself in the house's hallway, except the walls were older, the wallpaper peeling. A small figure, Bethany, stood at the opposite end, wearing a tattered nightgown. The girl's face was pale, bruises visible on her forearms. Lily called out, "Bethany," but the girl said nothing. She just lifted a trembling hand and pointed to Lily's bedroom door. In the dream, Lily's bedroom door swung open on its own, revealing the closet. The sliding door was wide open, dark interior yawning like a mouth. Bethany's eyes pleaded. Lily felt an invisible force compelling her forward. She glanced back at Bethany, but the girl was gone. Left alone in the corridor, Lily peered into the closet, the darkness so thick it felt alive. Her heart pounded like thunder. Then, in a sudden jolt, something grabbed her from behind. She heard a man's furious voice roar, "Stay out of there!" She woke up drenched in sweat, lungs heaving as if she'd just sprinted a mile. It took her several moments to recognize her own bedroom, to see that everything was normal except for the fact that Ranger was barking downstairs, his deep voice echoing up the stairwell. The digital clock read 3:07 am. Lily gathered her courage and crept down to the living room. She found Ranger standing at the foot of the stairs, barking at the darkness. "Ranger?" she whispered, kneeling by him, stroking his fur. He stopped barking but remained tense. Something or someone had disturbed him. Lily checked the locks. Everything was secure. The house was still, aside from the hum of the fridge and the drip of a faucet. But Lily could not shake the feeling that Bethany's father was somehow still lingering, still lurking in the shadows. Perhaps it was just her imagination, but it felt as though Jonathan Winter's hateful presence had seeped into the very wood of the house, standing guard over his dreadful secret. In the coming days, Lily devoted every spare moment to scouring the property. She looked for hidden panels, hollows in the floor, or stray papers in the attic. She even spent hours crawling around in the dusty basement with Ranger by her side. Sarah worried about her daughter's fixation, but Mark, despite cautioning Lily to stay safe, understood the drive to uncover the truth. He too wanted answers. He knew closure might be the only way to rid the house of its unrest and help Lily regain her peace. Eventually, Lily noticed a suspicious patch of wall in her closet. Behind the row of hanging clothes, the floral wallpaper was peeled back in one corner. She realized that if she pulled at the loose paper, she might uncover something. With trembling hands, Lily peeled it away, revealing old, rotted wood. She pressed on it gently, and the wood gave a little like there was space behind it. Her heart pounded. She grabbed a small hammer from Mark's workbench in the garage. She returned to the closet, drew a deep breath, and pried the loose board away. Dust billowed into the air, making her cough. Then she peered into the gap, Ranger whining at her side. There was a narrow, hidden crawl space behind the closet wall. Though she was terrified, Lily retrieved a flashlight from her father's toolbox. She shone it into the darkness. The space was cramped, barely large enough for a grown person to crawl inside. She saw something glimmer in the beam of the flashlight. Gingerly, she reached inside and felt around until her hand closed over a small tin box. It looked decades old, rusted around the edges. She pulled it out carefully and set it on the carpet. Hands shaking, Lily pried the lid open. Inside were a few papers, a small cloth doll with button eyes, and a silver locket on a chain. The doll's arms were ripped, stuffing peeking out. The locket was tarnished, but Lily could just make out an engraving, BWSHE, set the doll aside and carefully unfolded the papers. One was a report card from Lacey Springs Elementary, dated 1979. The name read, Bethany Winters. The grades were all over the place, some C's, a few B's. Another paper was a letter scrawled in the same shaky handwriting as the note Lily had found. If someone finds this, please help me. My father hurts me and locks me in the closet. Mama is gone. He said she left, but I heard her screaming. I don't know what to do. Please, if you find this, help me. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. Ranger whimpered softly, licking Lily's face. She could hardly breathe. The final item in the box was an envelope with an old Polaroid photo. It showed Bethany holding the cloth doll, sporting a timid smile. Next to her stood a woman. Lily guessed was Patricia Winters, Bethany's mother. She had warm eyes and wore a floral dress. Behind them loomed the house, and in the background a tall figure with a scowl on his face, Jonathan Winters. Lily carefully put everything back in the tin box. She felt a mix of heartbreak and rage. This was no legend or ghost tale. A real little girl had suffered horribly here, and that meant Lily had a responsibility to do more. She clutched the locket in her palm, feeling its cold metal bite her skin. This was Bethany's story, and it wouldn't remain hidden any longer. After Lily revealed her discovery to her parents, Mark took the evidence to the police station. With tangible proof of child abuse and possibly murder, an official investigation was reopened. Officer Price, who'd initially dismissed the entire matter as a quirk of an old house, now took it seriously. The media caught wind, especially the local newspaper, the Lacey Springs Gazette, which published an article titled, New Homeowners Uncover Possible Cold Case Evidence. The rumor mill began to churn. Neighbors whispered about the house on Maplewood Lane, about the father who once tormented his family. The older residents seemed to recall hearing arguments late at night or glimpses of Bethany's bruises when she accompanied her mother to the mailbox. Some spoke of hearing muffled screams that Jonathan Winters had explained away as movie sound effects. The entire community grew tense, waiting for some official resolution. Meanwhile, Lily found that Ranger's barking shifted. He still barked at the closet, but now it felt less frantic, more like a watchful warning. He rarely left Lily's side, as if protecting her from Jonathan's lingering spirit. On the nights Lily dared to sleep in her own bed, she heard the floorboards creak, the rustle of cloth, as if someone were pacing in her closet. She tried to comfort herself that maybe it was just the old house settling, but deep down she felt the presence of both Bethany and her father locked in a cosmic struggle. One particularly jarring evening, Lily was awakened by a fierce commotion in her bedroom. She sprang up to find Ranger going wild, barking and snapping at the closet door. She flipped on the light and saw that the door was inching open. Seemingly by itself there was no draft, no one on the other side. But the door slid inch by inch until it gaped wide. Lily's heart hammered in her chest. She felt the strangest sensation that someone stood there in the darkness, glaring at her with malevolence. Before she could cry out, a gust of cold air whipped through the room, extinguishing the lamp's light. She was plunged into darkness, Ranger's silhouette barely visible as he stood protectively in front of her. She could sense a hateful energy, an anger so intense it felt like it was burning. Lily trembled, trying to switch the lamp back on. Her fingers fumbled over the knob, and after a few frantic tries, the light flared back to life. The closet door was still wide open, but the presence felt diminished. Ranger's hackles remained raised, but his barking subsided into a cautious growl. Tears stung Lily's eyes. She rushed to her parents' room, sobbing about the door opening by itself. Mark and Sarah searched the bedroom but found no intruders, nothing that could have physically caused the door to slide open. They tried to reassure Lily that it was only the old house. Yet Lily sensed that Jonathan Winters was a malignant force, determined to keep his dark legacy hidden. A few days later, Mark received a call from a detective in Seattle. She had stumbled upon an old, unsolved missing persons file that connected Jonathan Winters to another property in rural Washington. He had apparently relocated there after selling the Maplewood Lane house, living off the grid for several years. She explained that the property had been seized by the bank and that when local authorities inspected it, they found troubling signs of violence, blood-stained floors, broken furniture, but no bodies. Jonathan Winters was never found. This news shook Mark to the core, but it also reignited his determination. He decided to take a few days off work to focus solely on this cold case. With the help of Officer Price and the Seattle detective, Mark pored over every crumb of information, hoping to find a lead on Bethany's fate. Did she perish alongside her mother? Or was there a chance she'd escaped? While Mark chased down leads, Lily continued to feel haunted within the house. One afternoon she sat on the porch swing, trying to do her homework, Ranger lying at her feet. She heard a voice so faint she almost thought she was dreaming. "Help me, please." She looked around, but no one was there, only the rustle of leaves in the autumn wind. Goosebumps prickled her arms. It was Bethany's voice. She was sure of it. "I'm trying," Lily whispered. "I promise." That night, in a moment of childlike desperation, Lily stood in her bedroom and addressed the closet directly. "Bethany." Her voice was quiet, trembling. "We're going to find out what happened to you and your mum." She pressed Bethany's locket, which she now wore around her neck, to her lips. "If you can hear me, just hang on. Please don't be afraid." A tear rolled down Lily's cheek. For a moment, she thought she heard a sob echoing through the closet's darkness. Ranger let out a small whine. Word spread fast in a small town, and soon an elderly resident named Miss S. Harriet Dugan came forward. She claimed to have been good friends with Patricia Winters in the late 1970s. She showed up at the Hamptons' door one Sunday, leaning heavily on a cane, her eyes misty with memories. She told Sarah and Lily that Patricia was a kind soul trapped in an abusive marriage. Jonathan was controlling and prone to violent rages. He isolated Patricia from friends and family, sometimes locking her and Bethany in the house for days at a time. Miss S. Dugan recalled that Patricia had confided in her about Jonathan's threats. He told her if she tried to leave, he'd kill their daughter. One day, Patricia stopped showing up to their usual grocery outings, and Miss S. Dugan never saw her again. She suspected the worst, but was too afraid to push the matter, as Jonathan was notoriously intimidating. Lily listened, tears streaming. Sarah gently squeezed her shoulder, equally troubled by the story. The old woman then asked if she could see Lily's closet, clearly shaken but determined. Lily led her upstairs, gingerly sliding the closet door open. Miss S. Dugan stared into the emptiness, eyes brimming with sorrow. She lightly touched the door's edge. She used to beg her mother not to lock her inside, but Patricia had no choice. Jonathan forced them both in here as punishment, or sometimes just Bethany alone when he thought she was misbehaving. Her voice quivered with anger. A wave of coldness descended over the room. Lily felt as if Jonathan's malevolent presence was listening, resenting the fact that his crimes were being exposed. Miss S. Dugan shivered. "There's nothing I regret more than not calling the police sooner." she said with a trembling sigh. But I was young and scared. As though in answer, a furious gust of wind rattled the house, sending the closet door skidding shut with a bang. Lily yelped in surprise, while Miss S. Dugan let out a startled gasp. Ranger barked at the closed door, teeth bared. Sarah quickly reopened it, flicking the bedroom lights on and off to confirm the electricity was still functioning. The tension in the air was palpable. Miss S. Dugan left soon after, promising to give a statement to the police. Lily watched her shuffle down the porch steps, both of them weighed down by the guilt of inaction, one for the past, one for the present. Lily glanced at the closet door once more, feeling a fierce resolve. Jonathan Winters would face judgment, one way or another. 2 weeks later, Mark received news that turned the case upside down. An unidentified body had been found in an abandoned well on a piece of farmland once owned by Jonathan Winters. It was the body of an adult woman, matching the approximate age Patricia Winters would have been in 1980. Though DNA tests were not conclusive yet, the circumstances strongly suggested it was Patricia. There was still no trace of Bethany, living or dead. The local media ran sensational headlines, remains possibly linked to decades-old abuse case. Community uproar grew. The police poured resources into investigating the farmland, searching for additional remains, but so far had found none. Lily watched the coverage on the evening news, her heart clenching. She thought of the battered mother in the photograph with Bethany. How had it all ended for her in a dark, forgotten well? Late that night, Lily sat up in bed, hugging her knees. The closet loomed, a silent sentinel. "Where are you, Bethany?" she whispered. Ranger lay at her feet, ears perked. Then from the hallway, a soft glow appeared. Lily blinked, certain her eyes were playing tricks, but the glow persisted, faint and flickering, like a candle flame in a breeze. It hovered by her doorway, and Lily felt an inexplicable pull to follow. She slipped out of bed, heart pounding, and padded into the hallway. The glow drifted ahead, leading her down the stairs, through the living room, and to the basement door. Ranger trailed behind, occasionally letting out low whines. The door creaked as Lily opened it. She flicked the light switch, descending the steps into the musty air. The glow beckoned her to the far corner, where old boxes and discarded furniture were stacked. One box caught Lily's eye, a tattered cardboard container that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. When she lifted the lid, she found random odds and ends left by previous owners, old glass bottles, rusted tools, a moldy ledger. But at the bottom, she discovered something truly surprising, a dusty journal labeled Patricia Winters. Lily inhaled sharply and opened it. The pages were crinkled with age, the ink fading in places, but still legible. It chronicled Patricia's life, her marriage to Jonathan, the abuse, her fears for Bethany. The final entries hinted at a desperate plan to escape, culminating in a frantic scribble, "If anything happens to me, please protect Bethany. She's my everything." It ended there, the rest of the pages torn out. Clutching the journal, Lily felt tears streaming down her face. She realized this was the last piece of the puzzle. If the police had proof of Jonathan's abuse and possibly Patricia's murder, they could definitively indict him if he was ever found. More importantly, the journal might contain clues as to what had happened to Bethany. Lily thumbed through the pages until she found a single mention. "Bethany's paternal aunt in Seattle might help us if we can get away." The aunt's name was scribbled, though partially smeared. Marjorie W., the last name blotched by water damage. Lily's hands shook with excitement. This might mean Bethany had survived, maybe found refuge with her aunt. Ranger barked softly. Lily looked at the faint glow. It was fading, as if it had accomplished its purpose of leading her to the journal. Lily whispered, "Thank you, Patricia. I'll help Bethany." Armed with the journal, Mark placed more calls, eventually locating a Marjorie Williams in Seattle, who was the correct age to have been Bethany's aunt. She confirmed Patricia Winters was indeed her sister, and that she took Bethany in around 1980 after an incident that forced them to flee in the middle of the night. The details were hazy, but Marjorie recalled that Jonathan had caught them trying to escape and that a scuffle broke out. Patricia told Bethany to run so she could distract Jonathan. Bethany was only 9, terrified and traumatized, but she managed to make it to a neighbor's house. From there, she called her aunt, who immediately rushed from Seattle to rescue her niece. Jonathan disappeared soon after. Marjorie also confirmed that Bethany, now in her late 40s, was alive and well under a new surname, but had cut off all ties to her father's past out of fear and residual trauma. Hearing this news, Lily and her family felt an intense wave of relief and heartbreak all at once. Bethany had survived, but her mother hadn't. Jonathan Winters was still a fugitive, presumably. The police reopened the cold case and posted bulletins. But after all these years, the odds of finding Jonathan were slim. Some speculated he might even be dead. Lily felt a vast weight lift from her shoulders. The knowledge that Bethany had escaped her father's grasp and built a life was enough to ease some of the sorrow that lurked in the closet. Over the following days, the oppressive energy that once clung to Lily's bedroom began to dissipate, as if Bethany's spirit no longer needed to cry out for help. Ranger, too, seemed calmer, occasionally gazing at the closet but no longer barking with the same desperate fervor. One stormy night, Lily awoke to thunder rattling the windows. Rain lashed against the house and lightning illuminated the sky. She reached over to assure Ranger was at her feet, but found her bed empty. Heart pounding, she got up and called softly, "Ranger?" The door was open, and Lily stepped into the hallway to see her dog sitting rigidly in front of the closet door, as if on guard duty. She flicked on the hallway light to see the closet door rattling gently. An irrational fear seized Lily was Jonathan's presence trying to reassert itself. Angry at being exposed? She mustered her courage and stood next to Ranger, placing a hand on the doorknob. Another flash of lightning lit the room. Lily swallowed, then yanked the door open. Nothing but her clothes and the faint smell of must. Still, the sense of an unseen presence prickled her skin. She could almost hear Jonathan's angry hiss, but Lily was no longer powerless. She held Bethany's locket in her palm and said firmly, "You can't hurt her anymore. We know the truth, and she's safe." At that moment, a gust of wind ripped through the room, slamming the window shutters open. Lily jumped, heart in her throat. Thunder boomed overhead. Ranger bared his teeth, growling at the empty air. Lily's hair whipped around her face. The closet door banged once, then fell still. She felt as though some final showdown was taking place. Bethany's father raging at the boundary he could no longer cross. Summoning every ounce of bravery, Lily shouted, "Go away! You've lost!" Her voice cracked with a combination of terror and conviction. As if in response, the wind died down. The thunder rolled off into the distance. The shutters stopped banging. The house fell quiet. Lily's heart hammered, but she felt a sudden peace settle over the room, like a long-held breath finally released. Ranger sat down, panting. She kneeled beside him, hugging his fur. "We did it," she whispered. In the weeks that followed, the Hampton family watched as the official investigation culminated in public acknowledgement of Jonathan Winters' monstrous acts. The remains in the well were identified as Patricia's, and the case was classified as homicide. With renewed fervor, authorities reopened old leads, determined to bring Jonathan to justice if he was still alive. A stroke of karmic fate arrived unexpectedly. A hiker discovered human remains in a remote ravine near the property Jonathan once owned. Dental records confirmed it was Jonathan Winters. He appeared to have suffered a fatal fall many years ago, his body left to decompose in the wilderness. The final puzzle piece slid into place. Justice had arrived in a twisted, natural way. Perhaps he'd been on the run or in search of a place to hide, only for nature itself to mete out the punishment he so richly deserved. When the news reached Lily, she felt an odd mixture of relief and sorrow for Bethany, who would never truly reconcile with her father. Yet, there was a sense of closure, knowing that the man who inflicted so much suffering was no longer out there to harm anyone else. In the aftermath, Lily's house began to feel different. The shadows seemed lighter. The closet that once felt like a prison now felt like an ordinary storage space. Ranger finally stopped barking at it altogether, trotting past it as if it held no significance. Lily could sleep soundly, free from nightmares and visions. Even the air smelled fresher, as though a dark cloud had lifted. One day, a letter arrived from Seattle. It was from Bethany. Marjorie had told her about the Hamptons' discovery. Bethany wrote with heartfelt gratitude for unearthing the truth and helping her mother's memory find peace. She enclosed a photograph of herself as an adult, smiling with her own daughter by her side. In the note, she wrote, "Thank you for freeing my mother's spirit and mine. I can finally stop looking over my shoulder. Bless you and your brave dog, Ranger." Lily held the letter close, tears of warmth shining in her eyes. She placed Bethany's locket in a small wooden keepsake box, deciding that if they ever met in person, she would return it to her rightful owner. She hoped that day might come, so they could share stories, bridging the decades between their experiences in that haunted closet. The house at Maplewood Lane stood tall and proud once again, its dark secrets laid bare, its halls filled with laughter rather than fear. And for Lily, the real horror turned into a testament of courage, compassion, and the fierce loyalty of a determined German shepherd who refused to let old evils remain hidden. Thank you for watching this chilling and heartwarming journey of truth and closure. Lily's unwavering courage, Ranger's protective instincts, and the final revelations about Bethany's fate remind us how important it is to never ignore that gut feeling, because sometimes the scariest truths hide right behind closed doors. We hope you were gripped by each twist, felt the heartbreak of past secrets, and witnessed the power of resilience that led to justice and a long-awaited peace. If this story moved you, enlightened you, or simply kept you on the edge of your seat, we invite you to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories. Your support helps us bring to light tales of bravery, mystery, and redemption. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, some secrets demand to be uncovered.